Back-to-back feel-good winners on the PGA Tour. Rory McIlroy followed by Justin Thomas. And now, more importantly than Justin Thomas getting his first win in 3 years is, I believe, our win picks pool is a bit tighter because I think you had JT last week, which means my lead has been cut in half. I'm sure that's all that you care about, you listeners, for this week. But the head-to-head betting contest heating up, but also head-to-head this week, we got pairs at the Zurich Classic of New Orleans. We had the feel-good winners last year, Shane Lowry and Rory McIlroy, and they are obviously the favorites to win once again this year. We're going to break down the Zurich Classic for today, letting you know best bets at FanDuel Sportsbook. No DFS for this week, but still should be a fun show regardless. Welcome on into the Heat Check, a FanDuel Research podcast. My name is Jim Sonis. I am a managing editor for FanDuel Research, joined here as I am every Tuesday by Brandon Gadula. You can check him out on X at Gadula13. He is on Blue Sky at Gadula. Check out his work at FanDuel Research, where he is a senior managing editor. Brandon, really fun winners past couple of weeks in the PGA Tour. I'm happy for JT, despite the fact it does cut into my lead in our head-to-head. How you doing today?
Yeah, I was sweating that one. It felt a little scummy to root against one of my low-key guys, Andrew Novak,
yeah.
like ball striker extraordinaire. But he was getting a lot of breaks going his way. I mean, that's what it takes. And it's just a reminder of how hard it is to win a golf, event on the PGA Tour. JT, penalized himself. I know he had some other penalties. Hit one out of the water, got splashed in mud, and it's like, if those things went, a couple inches a different way, he didn't call the penalty on himself, like, he's going to win by 4, but he almost lost. Like,
similar to Rory the previous week.
Yeah, like, it takes a lot to win a golf tournament. We're going to have a lot of volatility. Got a lot of volatility this week as well because it's a team event. But what was interesting to me was you mentioned that your phone's going off with random songs. I was wondering if it played a song when JT sank that putt to win the playoff.
Well, the most recent song that my Spotify played randomly is called Drippy Drop. The putt did drop. Do not Google the lyrics to that song. If you could find what song it is. So if you hear obscenities flying over the airways this week, sorry. But I think that song would have been an appropriate song to play when JT sunk the putt because we love JT. We're excited for him. We've been betting him, frankly, a lot. Our YouTube producer, Justin Lane, cuts up like YouTube shorts every week from the show. And one of the YouTube shorts that did really well last week was yours recommending JT to win. So little drippy drop from me when JT won. So yes, I think that would have been appropriate, even though it did not in fact happen.
Yeah, it's a reminder of how we actually just talked about the betting fatigue and talking about Russell Henley week after week and talking about Colin Morikawa a ton. And we've talked about Justin Thomas for so long, but it finally got to a point last week where the number was right again for how good he's been playing. I mean, frankly, it was a little too light from, my perspective. So it's a reminder of, look, if you like something that you see in a golfer's profile, and this really couldn't be less relevant this week of all weeks because there's just not one golfer we're talking about, but you might want to get you're probably going to get tired of betting the same guy, but if you see enough, it's probably not going to change after 1 week unless it's just a specific course fit situation, but it's not how we play it. So a little bit of vindication for going after some of the same guys so often. And, we also got that with Russell Henley. So again, doesn't really apply this week, but I don't know what does apply this week. So we can probably let that segue us on to the rest of the show. Who knows?
The DGAF show. We get to have fun for today, breaking down the Zurich Classic of New Orleans. We'll still talk some data for sure, but it's going to be a bit more free-flowing of a show for today. Again, no DFS, just the betting recommendations for today. We'll still go through event history. We'll still talk about golfers with the best form and more to get you ready for this event, but just focusing on the best bets of the week after that. But first, a reminder to make sure you are subscribed to the FanDuel Research podcast feed, wherever you get your podcast, because we are here every Tuesday breaking down best bets and DFS picks on the PGA Tour. You can find that also on the FanDuel Golf Betting YouTube page. So if you want the video version, check out the FanDuel Golf Betting YouTube page over on YouTube. Leave us a thumbs up there, subscribe, and turn on notifications over there. But also subscribe to the FanDuel Research podcast feed, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, etc. And if you like what you hear, leave us a 5-star rating and review as well. FanDuel is the best place to find all your favorite player props. And now you can make a heads-up play with player performance trends. That means whether you want to bet on a player to score 30 points or put up a triple-double, you can check out the latest stats and see who is hot without leaving the app. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. If you don't already have FanDuel, playoff time is the perfect time to join. You'll get started with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. So just visit FanDuel to join today. Make every moment more. FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Must be 21 plus and present in select states. For Kansas, an affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, or 18 plus and present in DC. First online, real money wager only, $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets, which expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Or visit FanDuel.com/RG. Call 1-888-789-7777. Or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut. Visit MD Gambling Help in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York. Let's take a look here at the Zurich Classic of New Orleans. It is at TPC Louisiana, which is 7,425 yards and a par 72. Now, of course, that is not the most important thing for this week. The most important thing is the format for this event. It is the only team play event on the PGA Tour calendar for now. They play a best ball round in the first and third rounds, and then they alternate shots in the second and fourth rounds. So the strength of both golfers will matter over the course of the 4 rounds if they do make the cut as well. So a lot to consider for this week. Brandon, obviously, it's a unique event in terms of what we consider, but what should we know as far as the data for TPC Louisiana?
Yeah, it's a great question. Well, a little bit of editorializing here, some foregrounding. This event's always tricky. It's a team event, so we don't have the best data to work off of in the first place. But additionally, teammates change. The order of teammates' names change. If you get a spreadsheet ruiner in there, I won't name any names, but there are enough spreadsheet ruiners in here that the name matching itself takes a bit. So there's that. But I actually feel, speaking of vindication, I feel a little bit better. I was pulling up the last 5 years of results here, and even the PGA Tour.com struggles a little bit. They have, like, for example, Brian Gay and Rory Sabatini finishing 92 under par for the weekend in third place back in 2019 behind Jon Rahm and Ryan Palmer at 68 under par. Seems like there was a little bit of some data transfer issues. So
are you sure that wasn't correct?
I don't think that Brian Gay and Rory Sabatini went 92 under.
I'll get the interns to check. Don't worry.
Still,
we'll figure this out.
But yeah, so with that said, and I know we're kind of coming at this a little bit less, maybe it sounds like we're less engaged. We did all the work. It's just there's only so much we can do. So I wanted to foreground that a little bit as we, now dig into like what matters. So as you mentioned, so it's over 7,400 yards, pretty average fairway size in terms of width, but smaller greens. They're POA overseed. But I think the real takeaway for this is like the winning scores. 5 most recent winning scores have been 25 under, 30 under, 29, 20, and 26. So you got to be able to score with an average winning score of around like 26 under par. That's just that's pretty low. Minus 25.6. I was looking forward to my notes here. But what's also important to know how we even get to that point is the actual setup, because it's team golf can be a lot of different things. Usually it's foursomes and four ball. For the Zurich, it's four ball, which is your best ball. So you'll each play your own ball on Thursday and Saturday, and then Friday and Sunday is foursomes. So it's alternate shot. So the more variance, the more team strategy comes into play. So that's also why you're not going to get shot length data. It's going to be hard to figure out where you carried. Did you carry your teammate, etc. So looking at like past history at this event might not be the worst thing, but it's also only a small piece to the puzzle. And that also goes into things like team chemistry. You see a lot of teams debut most years because it's just not a common event. Players will play with different guys, and you see some good finishes, including Rory McIlroy decided to play last year, and he went out and won with Shane Lowry. So you don't necessarily need to have lengthy history. We'll talk about some of the teams that we've seen the most. Not all of them have always play well here, but there are also some older names. So we'll get into that. So like, all right, I said all that. What kind of matters for me? It's average team strength. Like when I look at the Ryder Cup, I look at the President's Cup, average team strength for like duos is a pretty good predictor. Even if you're not hitting exactly 50% of your shots, or you're hitting potentially some of the least impactful shots, if you're hitting, iron putter on a par 4, it's going to be more impactful, just mathematically than driver wedge, for example, if you miss the green. I don't care. That's complicating it too much. I upped the variance in my win simulation model for the week, which I always do for this event. I think average total strokes gained for your team is the best thing you can just focus on. And from there, you can layer in maybe these teams play very differently, and one guy hits it far, one guy hits fairways, and that's a plus. You could sell yourself on that. You could also sell yourself on golfers with very similar profiles. They're going to be out there playing the same level of golf. That's also interesting. But then you're maybe not getting a benefit if you're playing with someone who plays exactly the same way as you do. So as much as we want to figure it out, we're so limited, where the thing I'm just going to go back to is overall strength as measured by total strokes gained for your entire team. Because if you have one great player and one weak player, that weaker player's gotta factor in.
Yep, exactly. And that's why for me, it is just going to come down to doing my typical process, but then averaging out the teams basically. So it's like, I'm still looking at true strokes gained at Data Golf across the past 6 months. I'm still looking at the strokes gained to stabilization numbers, because like those are the numbers I care about. And I think that there's no real need to change things up. Like, yeah, we have to count for more variance this week than we typically would and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, it's still golf. These are still golfers. These are the same guys we've seen in the PGA Tour for however long they've been there. And I don't want to overcomplicate things. It is a complex event, which is why the variance is higher. But I do think we can still at least have some element of data in the mix for sure. Let's take a look back at previous Zurich Classics, Brandon, and see if we can get a glimpse of that chemistry you were discussing. When you look back at past events, have we seen teams that have been here pretty often and how they done when they have been here?
Yeah, so since this has become a team event in 2017, I went back and pulled everything. I think I got every pairing correct here. It's a chance that something came through and, I didn't quite pick it, but the most common team we've seen has been Charlie Hoffman and Nick Watney, who have made all 7 starts in this span. They've made 6 cuts. They've finished top 25 5 different times. I'm not going to talk about their current, like not everybody's current form here. This is mostly just a team overview to get you a little bit of a jump start. If you're not doing enough with everything else, I'm not that interested. But they stand out as the most voluminous team. Next up is Troy Merritt and Robert Streb with 6 starts. They've been top 25 3 times, but they've also missed the cut 3 of the last 4 years here. Their made cut in 2023 was a 13th place finish, but they've played here a lot. Is the current form there? No. their win odds are 400 to 1. So take that for what it's worth. Then we get to Adam Schenk and Tyler Duncan, who've played here 4 times. They've got a top 10. They've got 3 top 25s and 3 made cuts. Haven't really talked. These are kind of like low-key heat check guys from back in the day, but not really someone that we're talking about either of them lately due to current form. They're 110 to 1 on FanDuel Sportsbook. So you can play the familiarity angle. For me, it's probably not enough. Does that level of starting experience together do anything for you?
Nope, not a thing. All about the form, baby.
Yeah, those 3 teams have combined for 1 golfer over the last 50 rounds, according to Data Golf, with a total strokes gained average inside the top 115. So there's like 160 golfers in this field. That's Charlie Hoffman, who's 48th. Everyone else is just not really there. So let's move on to the 2-start teams. Team Canada, Nick Taylor and Adam Hadwin. They've been 2nd and 10th. Mark Hubbard and Ryan Bream, 3rd and 14th in their 2 starts. Nick Hardy and Davis Riley, they won in 2023. They were 28th last year, so could get a little bit of a buzz if you're seeing enough from them. The Fitzpatrick brothers from Full Swing fame, Matt and Alex Fitzpatrick, 2 top 20s in their 2 starts. Luke List and Henrik Norlander, 2 top 25s in theirs. But also, just to kind of contradict everything in terms of team chemistry, you'll see golfers pair up together for the first time. A tandem that has drawn my attention this week doing that is Aaron Rai and Sahith Theegala. But we've had some golfers finish 10th or better. Last year, Rory McIlroy and Shane Lowry went out and won. Nico Echeverria and Max Grazerman were T4, same as Patrick Fishburne and Zach Blair. Ryan Fox, Gary Higo, also T4. Thomas Dietrich and Robert McIntyre were 8th last year as well.
And I think that the interesting thing here is that it doesn't matter that much because there are so few teams that have like that history that matters. Like, I like Rory McIlroy and Shane Lowry this week. It has nothing to do with what they did last year. It's because frankly, they're better golfers than most of the guys in the field. So I know like there is an element of chemistry, like you alluded to, like are Nick Taylor and Adam Hadwin potentially going to play better because they know each other really well and they seem to get along better really well? Sure. Can I quantify that for all golfers in the field? No. So it's going to be a hard time for me to do anything beyond like acknowledging that they've played together in the past. So personally, for me, I don't even care that much. Is that overlooking it?
So, I mean, like, if we go past winners, it's been Shane Lowry, Rory McIlroy, Nick Hardy, Davis Riley, Patrick Cantlay, and Xander Schauffele, who played here multiple times before that and didn't win. I know that because it seemed like they would always win, and that was not the case. Mark Leishman and Cam Smith won in a playoff in 2021, the 2 Aussies, but Cam Smith also won in 2017 with Jonas Blixt. And then we had Ryan Palmer and Jon Rahm, which was like kind of a funny duo for a lot of people, although it kind of made a little bit more sense statistically than people gave it credit for. I was like, yeah, Jon Rahm and, anybody could probably go out and win whenever Jon Rahm was playing well. So, like, I don't think it matters a ton. I want overall form.
Yeah.
I'm just going to leave it at that.
So overall form is what matters most for us. Let's dive into it. Let's see who's playing the best golf right now. And I've got a feeling that McIlroy and Lowry guy might come up in this segment somewhere.
Yeah. Rory and Uncle Shane, they definitely stand out in this department. So I'm looking at the last 3 months in terms of true strokes gained average, according to Data Golf's true strokes gained query. Unsurprisingly, Rory is number 1 by himself at a plus 3.12 in this span. Again, over the last 3 months, it's 24 rounds for him. Colin Morikawa is second at a distant 2.03, so a shot worse than Rory. And then, look, it's Shane Lowry at a plus 1.71. So combined, they have by far the best average strokes gained per round over the last 3 months at a plus 2.42. And then we jump down to a 1.01 for Keith Mitchell and JT Poston. Do you want to pause on Lowry and McIlroy or talk about them more later?
Let's talk about them here briefly now, because if it's okay with you, I kind of want to get a little bit like in the weeds with it. You
Yeah.
said you up the variance for this kind of event, which you kind of have to, like from a modeling perspective.
Yeah.
How high does that variance get? Because I mean, it's kind of a prohibitive cut. Only the top 33 teams plus ties advance into the first 36 holes. So, like, it's a prohibitive cut. That adds to the variance too. Because, like, let's say they have a bad round on Thursday, they can miss a cut and it won't matter. But, like, when you look at the gap between Lowry and McIlroy in the field, it feels not prohibitive, because like there's no such thing as a prohibitive like advantage, especially in a high variance event, but it's real big. So what kind of variance are we discussing here because of the format and stuff?
I mean, it's just marginal, honestly. Yeah. Let me see. I made it about 0.15 shots per round.
Okay.
Which is not nothing, but percentage wise, it's quite small.
Yeah.
It's like, I think, I don't know, don't make me do math on there, but it's not a ton. It was just something to sort of account for the fact that, it's a team event. There's an alternate shot element, but also in the same sense, there's a best ball element, and that means that scores can go low. I kind of glossed over it because I didn't think it mattered a ton, but you might see some like 63s. We've seen I think 3 63s. Yeah. An alternate shot all since 2023. Xander and Cantlay did it. But they also had a best ball 59. So like variance, just because I say it's more like add more variance to the simulations, it doesn't mean that their odds of winning drastically go down.
Right.
It's just that there's more variance in things, so they might not win at the same exact rate you would expect them to win if this was just Rory at a plus 2.34 versus, that say JT Poston at a 1.01. It's a whole different ball game. There's still a little bit too steep for me at plus 360, but I would not argue with anyone. And I feel like someone here is going to like them at plus 360, which I totally get. However, it's still a full field event.
Sure.
In terms of total golfers, there's some variance, and they won in a playoff last year. It's not as if they won by 5 shots. So just something to keep in mind. I like them. I've got nothing against them by any means, and they are substantially better than everybody else in the field as far as teams go.
Well, now that Rory has the monkey off his back, he can go out and win the true tournaments like the Zurich Classic. That's the full analysis you actually need. So you alluded to McIlroy and Lowry, and you talked about Morikawa a bit in there as well. Which other golfers are entering here with good form as a team with their pairing?
So, yeah, if I go down the list here over the last 3 months, it's Keith Mitchell and JT Poston. They're at a 1.01 strokes gained average. Thomas Dietrich and Robert McIntyre at a 0.96. I kind of like them, and they did finish 8th here last year. Ben Griffin and Andrew Novak, who almost ripped my heart out, but I also felt bad for him as well last week. They're at a 0.95. Wyndham Clark and Taylor Moore at a 0.92. So pretty clustered here. Kind of sends a theme where it's kind of gradual, because even if you have a bigger name, you have, in this case, unless you're Shane Lowry and Rory McIlroy, some of the top tier golfers are paired with some guys bogging down their numbers, or you get 2 sort of equal golfers to average things out a little bit. But speaking of that, we get to Kurt Kitayama and Colin Morikawa at a 0.85. They played here last year. 23rd was their finish. Ryan Gerard, Danny Walker at a 0.78. Remember that duo for later on. Bryce Garnett and Sepp Straka, 0.74. They played together last year, finishing 11th. Tom Hoge, Billy Horschel, 0.72. Might want to remember them as well. And then Aaron Ryan, Sahith Theegala at a 0.72 as well. Might want to remember them even.
It's almost like we're valuing form.
A little bit. Weird. So a little bit. And then we drop down to a 0.54. So let me see if I can swap these to numbers real fast, because that's not even quicker than counting. So we've got 10 teams I listed out So that means 10 teams are averaging at least a 0.72, but everyone other than those 10 teams is at a 0.54 or best.
So it's a tier up top with McIlroy and Lowry, a second meaty tier of 9 teams basically, and then everybody else basically, right?
Yes, and that's almost 2 shots per round.
Right.
Worse than Lowry and McIlroy, which again, I cannot stress enough. Yeah. If you can build a case for Shane Lowry and Rory McIlroy, boy, it's pretty easy to do. My model, even if I like reduce the variance a little bit, which would reward them for being better, it's still a little too steep for me, but I understand it. They should win, like subjectively. It's a matter of what that number needs to be for me to get there. But that's how good they are. And that's just kind of, a way to think about things. But if you also want to spin this a little bit differently and think about teams in a different way, there are some teams with 2 top 30 golfers over a larger sample, the last 50 rounds. So who's top 30? Do you have both guys top 30 in last 50 true strokes gained? Rory and Shane Lowry fit. Morikawa and Kitayama fit. Poston and Keith Mitchell. Dietrich and McIntyre. Ben Griffin and Andrew Novak. Wyndham Clark and Taylor Moore. And then Nico Echeverria and Max Grazerman, as well as Sam Stevens and Max McGreevy. So I'm not going to dig into those individual golfers and how they're playing. I'm trying to give some information because it's a different show. You can look at those teams a little more specifically if you'd like. The ones that I like, I will talk about in just a bit. But there's so many different ways to look into these teams and what to value. It could be more balance. It could be, you think Collin Morikawa gets the best out of Kurt Kitayama, who has won a signature event in his career. Like, if you think that's the case, I can't tell you no, because it's such a unique event.
I did want to ask you about them specifically because Morikawa very clearly the next best like individual golfer in the field. Kitayama is a guy we've liked at times. The form for him has soured quite a bit since the last time we discussed him. And it's not just the putting. We always talk about the putting with him, but the ball striking has not been as good recently either. Has it soured to the point where you're not interested in them at 12-1, or is that number long enough where you think they're at least worth a consideration this week?
So I liked them last year. I think they were my pick at the top. And it was just frankly not enough. It's not enough this year of any sort of discount. I feel like I'm paying like a Collin Morikawa price with also a lot of work from Kurt Kitayama factored in, which I don't care for. Just don't really see it there in terms of the model. I have them closer to like, what are they currently, 12?
Yeah.
I have them at like 15 and change. So it's fine. It's just not enough.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. So, and that has a lot to do with, Kitayama's current form.
Yep. I came to the same conclusion as well. And also Morikawa bit me last week, and therefore we get a 1 week break from betting Collin Morikawa, which I will certainly take. Weather for this week does not look too bad. There will be some wind both Thursday and Friday, but won't get above about 11 miles per hour. So should be broadly okay there and no massive concerns for weather for this week. So let's take a look now at the betting odds over at FanDuel Sportsbook and dive in to our favorite bets for this week at the Zurich Classic. Brandon, when you weigh all the data, when you weigh the intangibles, everything else at play for this week, who are your favorite outright bets for the Zurich Classic?
Are they on your board? No, you guys scroll a little bit. To Aaron Rai and Sahith Theegala.
They're not in order.
I
don't know why.
Look,
usually it's descending order.
Yes. Because every time I'm like, where's Torbjorn and Matt Wallace? And then they're higher than I think on the list, even though they're 40-1. And I'm like, oh, they must be like 18-1, but they're not.
I can't explain it.
It's that kind of week. Look, it's hard to balance.
Just wants to bait me into betting Wyndham again, and I will not fall for it, sir.
At least they put him second, so it was harder to find his name, I guess.
No, but see the issue. Oh no, they're saving me because if I don't have to scroll to find Wyndham, I can't bet him. That's the rule.
Yeah. Okay.
So thank you, FanDuel. You got my back. I appreciate that.
But I like Aaron Rai and Sahith Theegala to win the Zurich Classic together. No team experience, but 25-1 is a good number. My simulation model has them around 22-1, and I understand why. You can kind of nitpick Theegala's current form a little bit, but Aaron Rai's playing good golf, striping it as always. And over the last 50 rounds, according to Data Golf, Rai's 10th in the field in strokes gained tee to green with field strength adjustments. Theegala just 58th, but if you average them out, they're 11th. Again, a lot of that's to do with Rai, but it's also a reminder that even though Sahith's form is not where we might maybe want it to be, it's still not necessarily bad enough to bog down what Aaron Rai's bringing to the table, and potentially Sahith's putting gets Rai going as well. We talked about Rai's putting regression for a long time now, but again, it's my simulation model. It also is a team that I think has that type of go and get it mentality, and also potentially like Sahith brings out a little more aggressive play from Rai, which I would like. That's speculation, that's projecting, but Rai and Theegala definitely have the combined form to go out and win the Zurich Classic this week.
I agree with you that they are an intriguing bet to win it all. They're 25-1. I have them in my non-outright section. They are plus 260 for a top 10 this week. So I agree with your overall sentiment that like this is a team we can buy into. And you mentioned Theegala's form. That's a very fair issue with this team. They're down to plus 230 now. Still fine. I'm not going to object too much to plus 230. But honestly, Theegala, it's never having a low baseline for him. It's because he can have low lows, but he can also have high highs. And I don't mind that in this kind of event where it's a more volatile event. You've got that higher variance and you've got an element of best ball in there too. So you can kind of smooth out the variance associated with him. And Rai doesn't seem to have a lot of lows. So I feel like it's a very high like baseline team. And that could be enough in an event where there aren't a lot of obstacles to overcome as far as like superstar type teams. So again, I down to plus 230, not as enthusiastic about that as I was plus 260, but to me, it's still a fine bet. So I don't mind them for a top 10. You got them to win 25-1. I do think that's intriguing too, but for me, preference for the top 10 plus 230. But overall, I think we're both very intrigued by a team that has one steady guy, one wild card. And I think in this event, that's not the worst combination to have.
I think you could also say one steady guy and one wild card for this next team, although it's maybe not. I could kind of see it both ways, but yes, I'm not digging too deep. But if I'm not betting Lowry and McIlroy, I kind of have some flexibility because the odds are pretty long for everybody else aside from really Kitayama and Morikawa. But I'm sticking in that 20 range with Billy Horschel and Tom Hoge. The wild card here, like mathematically, is Hoge, who's got a high ceiling. He's such a good iron player. He's probably going to get Billy some good birdie looks, but Billy also kind of more of the wild card from a personality standpoint. So I was trying to figure out, in a team event, you can always do some arbitrary cutoffs, and I'm going to do that. But there's only 4 teams that are top 20 in average strokes gained tee to green and average strokes gained putting over each golfer's last 50 rounds. Of course, this is one of those 4 teams. Horschel, like the recent tee to green games, just kind of okay. It's 60th, but Hoagie's a lot better. He's 6th in approach, but he's also 25th in putting. And Hoge like can go out and make birdies. He can go low, so he's got a little bit of that, best ball fire to sort of get behind. And I don't know why I didn't make the same connection for Sahith, but it's maybe because Billy went out and was part of the TGL championship winning Atlanta Drive, but he's got some extra team reps in the tank.
Can't lay stunk after TGL. I'm not allowing this narrative to get the entrance reported back. The TGL narrative is not real.
No. This is back to a team event.
Nope.
We saw the best.
We have data. We've got data.
No, we saw.
Why are you denying science, bro?
Jim,
come on.
How many team events did Patrick Cantlay play in on the PGA Tour since TGL. Exactly. Billy Horschel's going back to the team format. He put the team on his back. He drove.
Is there a hammer at the Zurich Classic?
Billy's going to be throwing hammers. They're not going to be recognized by the officials, but he's going to be throwing them. Sahith also was in TGL.
You got WrestleMania on the mind. I can't handle this prop analysis here.
Well, the tag division is a little bit iffy, so we'll save that for later for our wrestling show. But
I thought the Northwestern guy won the tag team thing.
It was not WrestleMania. That was Stand and Deliver. But
so does that mean that we should bet Dylan Wu and David Lipsky because Go Cats, or is that not a narrative?
I'm not going to.
I'm going to buy more into that than the TGL narrative of Billy Horschel.
You can look, bet me then, straight up.
No, absolutely not.
Again, jokes aside, Horschel and Hoge are a really interesting team. The data's there. Horschel's playing good enough golf still that I'm fine with it. Hoge, he's won on the PGA Tour. He's going to get some birdie looks. He can go low. I think that 20-1, frankly, is just a little bit too long. I got a little nervous because Horschel and Hoge are above Ryan Thigala on Jim's screen here. But no, the odds are still correct that they're 28-1. I think it's a good number.
I mean, they're in really good form, so I can't give you too much nonsense for that. I think that they do make a lot of sense. You got Horschel and Hoge, the HO convergence there as well, 28-1 to win this week, paired with Aaron Rai and Sahith Theegala, 25-1 as your outrights. And I also again have Ryan Theegala as a top 10 for me at plus 230. With all of that said, if I'm making an outright bet for this week, and I am making only one, it is going to be on Rory McIlroy and Shane Lowry to make it back-to-back here in the Zurich Classic. And the reason is because, again, the gap between them and the field is truly massive for this week. If you average each golfer's true strokes gained over the past 6 months, they're at 2.32. This is 6 months versus you were talking about 3 months earlier on. Nobody else in the field is above 1.19. That is just a huge gap over a very large sample. We know the longer term data is going to favor McIlroy and Lowry as well. Both these guys have a lot of upside, which means when we're in that best ball format, they can take risks and they can be volatile. They can do some crazy stuff. It's just really hard for me to overlook the gap between them and the field. Like, yes, there is a Masters hangover. Yes, it is a volatile event. It's hard to go back to back in the event, stuff like that. There's a lot of stuff working against them. But like plus 360 is not an outrageous number. It's still between 20 and 25%. We're not talking like even money for them to win this one. I do think there's still enough value in them to justify betting them when you consider just how good they are compared to the field. They do get a narrative bump from that cohesion, that chemistry they have in the course you alluded to earlier on. I think that's enough to justify betting them at plus 360. I don't blame you if you don't want to buy in because it is a short number for sure, but I think there is enough here to go with them. Ride the good vibes and bet on McIlroy and Lowry to go back-to-back here at TPC Louisiana. How long would you need that number to be for you to buy into it? Are we talking 5-1? Like how long would it need to be for you to be enticed?
Yeah. So if I reduce the variance in my model, they're around 5-1.
Okay.
I get it. Like I understand why it's plus 360. It's just asking that they go out there and have really no margin of error.
Yeah.
Like, which sounds wrong because they have margin of error with how good they are. But if you're talking like no other team spikes, etc., like plus 360, it's all or nothing. But if that's your only outright bet, I get it.
Yeah. And it will be for me this week. I couldn't talk myself into anybody else. So I got McIlroy and Lowry plus 360 for this week. Let's move to your non-outrights, the other bets you're eyeing for this week. And this first one is actually another one that I have on my list too. So I'll have you start things off and outline your first non-outright of the week, and then I'll pile on as to why I am in agreement with you on this one.
Can you stop?
Can I stop what?
Like how in a team format, how we have so much overlap? This is outrageous.
Well, because we're looking at the same data. Well, actually, no, we're not, because you're looking at...
No, we're not.
Yeah, we're looking at different data. We arrive at the same conclusion, but frankly, like this team we're about to discuss is two individuals. At least we've discussed one of them. I've discussed one of them myself. So I think that the form is good enough and the odds are long enough where like it kind of just makes sense. We've had cohesion on them in the past, so why not keep riding it?
Yeah, so I like, and I guess Jim does as well, Ryan Gerard and Danny Walker to finish top 10 at plus 450. So I mentioned about there being 4 teams whose average strokes gained, tee to green, and putting over the last 50 rounds, according to Data Golf, both ranked top 20. Just again, 4 teams. Those teams, of course, Gerard and Walker, joining Rory McIlroy and Shane Lowry, whose win odds are plus 360. Wyndham Clark and Taylor Moore at plus 2,200, and Billy Horschel and Tom Hoge at plus 2,800. And if you're talking straight up win odds, Gerard and Walker are 55 to 1. So they're kind of an outlier in that standpoint. They've got balance, but something that I haven't talked about a ton is individual player variance, something I talk more about other weeks, but both are top 30 in terms of their average strokes gained plus a standard deviation, according to Data Golf's data over the last 50 rounds. So they've got ceilings. So I feel good with an outright, but I'd rather, I'd rather recommend straight up a plus top or a top 10 at plus 450. Gerard is the stronger player of late. He's top 13 in approach and putting, but he's got some distance that Gerard doesn't necessarily have. He's still good in iron play, 31st over the last 50 rounds in strokes gained approach. So that's a good recipe for upside. And yes, a top 10 is still a high upside play. And I think they have the upside to do it.
I do too. And it's because they're both in just good form right now. Walker, 6 of the players, he's had some miscuts since then, but good iron play in 2 of those miscuts. So it's not as if his entire game was off, just had, some other things work against him. Gerard, runner up at the Valero, 9th in Houston, good irons, good putting. He is a guy who played pretty well over the summer last year in the Corn Ferry Tour too. So it's not like it's come out of nowhere for Gerard to kind of come on strong here. If I were to place another outright this week beyond McIlroy and Lowry, it would be on these guys 55 to 1. But I agree with you. The top 10 does make a lot of sense just because the form for both these guys trending in the right direction. They've been playing really good golf recently. Like you said, they kind of have good cohesion. They've got that upside juice. I think it combines well to make them enticing. So I'm going to go with them top 10 plus 450 for this week. So we're both in lockstep on Ryan Gerard and Danny Walker as our non-outright this week. Which other non-outrights are you eyeing here?
A lower ceiling team, but Doug Ghim and Chan Kim to finish top 20 at plus 160. They got to make some putts. It's the reason that they don't have a higher ceiling, frankly, but their tee to green game is good. They're tied for 11th in the field over the last 50. It's mostly Ghim, who's 11th himself, but Kim's pretty good still, 51st. He's 26th in approach and 37th around the green, just not a good driver, despite some solid stats in terms of distance and accuracy. But this is one of those teams that if I went so far as to run comparisons to see which golfers are the most comparable, this is going to be one of the most statistically comparable teams. A lot of overlap in their game. They're just both outside the top 100 in putting over the last 50 rounds. Not super surprising. However, if they played to their tee to green potential, mostly Ghim, you're going to get extra chances for birdies, especially in those best ball formats. So top 20 at plus 160 for Doug Ghim, Chan Kim. The model says there's enough there for a top 20.
If you look at the past 6 months and just look at the teams combined strokes gained on approach for each golfer, number 1 is Lowry, McIlroy, obviously. Number 2, not surprisingly, Kitayama, Morikawa. 3 is Bryce Gardner and Sepp Straka. I think one golfer in that duo is doing a lot of work with that. Tom Hoge, approach god, with Billy Horschel is number 4, but then number 5 is Doug Ghim and Chan Kim. We did call Hoge approach god, right? That was him, or is that someone else?
I think you did.
Okay. You didn't want to drop some blasphemy on the air. Okay. Interesting. But like, that's just really good iron play for guys who are plus 160 for a top 20 in this kind of event. So I have been there with Ghim in the past, not recently as much, but like he's still been pretty solid. So I think the logic is there for Ghim and Kim to buy into them at plus 160 for a top 20. So I don't mind that at all.
It wouldn't have been Ryan Palmer, would it?
No. I liked Ryan Palmer, but I think it's for different reasons. I think it was Hoagie. Honestly, there is a non-zero chance it was like Russell Henley before he like really broke out.
Possible.
I think it was either him or Hoagie.
Yeah. Hoagie sounds right. But anyway, yeah, look, nobody's forgetting that putt that Billy Horschel hit to clinch the TGL Cup, right? Hoagie's going to get him chances, and Horschel's going to sink those. So
no, absolutely not. I can't let this happen. This sacred podcast.
I need a TGL countdown. Also for my wife, she's probably getting antsy for the next TGL season.
Yeah. All right. I'll allow the narratives if it makes Sierra happy. Otherwise, banned forever because of Patrick Cantlay. That's the only reason that it's been banned. So your non-outrights are Doug Ghim and Chan Kim top 20 plus 160, and then Ryan Gerard and Danny Walker top 10 at plus 450. I also had that same Gerard and Walker bet plus 450, and the already mentioned Aaron Ryan Sahith Theegala top 10 at plus 260. Those are my only non-outrights. So that's all we have for this week. Win picks, though. I'm pretty sure you beat me in the bobble hat because my team imploded over the weekend. Got off to a really good start, and then everything went terrible from there. Thank you, Colin. You get to pick either first and fourth or second and third. What's your preference for win picks this week?
So, I mean, there's such an obvious like pick by the process, but I don't know if the odds themselves justify it. So I'm actually just gonna go second and third. And if you want to take Lowry and McIlroy for a chance to get that, I'll leave it go.
I will. Yeah.
Okay.
So I got Lowry and McIlroy plus 360 as my first pick. Then you get two, and then I'll pick another one after that.
I'm going to go with the two teams that I like, Aaron Rai and Sahith Theegala, and then Tom Hoge and Billy Horschel at 25 and 28 respectively.
And what's the gap between you and me now? Is it like 20 after your JT win? I have 20 units.
24.
Okay. Yeah, Henley was 44. Okay. So try to nurse that gap. Long way to go. Can't quite pedal down yet. And as a result of the fact that I can't quite pedal down yet, and you have cut into my lead, let's go for it. Ryan Gerard, Danny Walker, 55-1 to win for this week. I mentioned if I were to place another outright for this week, it would be on them. I don't see a lot of other options I really like. Like, yes, I could go with the Morikawa Kitayama because they're probably the second most likely team, but I just don't think the odds are good enough. And at the end of the day, when we're making two outright bets every week, it is really about the odds. Like, you do need to have like good values, and I don't think they're good values. So I'm going to drop all the way down to Gerard and Walker, 55-1, try to re-lengthen my lead in the bobble hat or in our win picks head-to-head for this year. Any final thoughts for you, Brandon, before we close up shop for the Zurich Classic of New Orleans?
Look, so many ways to go, of course. I will say if I reduce the variance and treat this like a regular event, Morikawa and Kitayama at 12-1 is fair. So if you like that, that's fine. You know, I think it's justifiable. It's just going to come down to what all you tend to value. If it is like chemistry, it's fine, but I don't think it's like vital. I do think there are ways to go, but there's also one very big favorite for a good reason, but alternatively some interesting second tier teams. So I'm kind of excited for this one. Yeah. I never get as excited for it as I think I will, but I'm going to try to stay amped for this one all weekend. Even though we got an LPGA major going on too, but it is different. I don't know. I feel like they need to get we need like more team events throughout the year where like they keep the same duo and it's like a race within the season kind of thing. Or
what about a 4-team event? Maybe we even played in a simulator. I don't know. Just, tossing out some ideas.
Yeah. 3 players. They could do triples.
Okay.
Then they could reduce it to 15 holes.
And there could be like some kind of prop, like like an axe. No, let's do a hammer instead. That's a little bit safer than throwing axes, I guess, on a golf course. But maybe we'll try that.
Yeah.
Hypothetically.
But
then we won't factor it in because the data says it does not matter. So we can do all this, but throw out the data. It doesn't matter. It is irrelevant. until Patrick Cantlay does something, which is
he's been playing fine. Get out of here.
I used him in my season long league last week, and he let me down. Done.
Last week he let you down with the T13.
Yes.
His ball striking is so good. He's going to win soon.
I could have used Justin Thomas, and I didn't.
That's your fault. I told you.
It's Patrick Cantlay's fault. Let's be honest here.
Okay.
It's his fault. That is all that we have here for this week on the Heat Check. Back with you once again next Tuesday, though, breaking down every week's PGA Tour event. To get those shows as they're posted, search for the FanDuel Research podcast feed wherever you get your podcasts. Hit subscribe there, but also check us out on the FanDuel Golf Betting YouTube page. Leave us a thumbs up there and subscribe and turn on notifications. Get notified as we put our shows up each and every week. Brandon, people have questions for you on social media about how much TGL matters, how much variance you're making in your model. Where can they find you there?
I'm on Twitter at Gadula13, GDULA13. I'm on Blue Sky at Gadula. One final thought.
I've got my finger over the mute button. Tread
Justin Thomas won last week. Billy Horschel was in a position to win this week. Patrick Cantlay's been knocking on the door. We could get 3 straight from the Atlanta Drive.
I forgot. Yeah. Okay. I didn't factor JT in there.
And we just need Lucas Glover to come through.
That'll happen eventually.
Yeah.
It'll be when I don't use the DFS.
Who wins first, Lucas Glover or Patrick Cantlay?
Patrick Cantlay will win some like stupid fall tournament. So we'll go with I'll pick Cantlay, but you know, it is what it is.
Getting ready for TGL season in the
Patrick
fall.
Fleetwood. Cantlay. We'll see when that happens for him. That is all that we have here for today. Appreciate you for tuning in as always. I am on X and Blue Sky at Jim Sonis. You can find FanDuel Research on X at FanDuel Research. Big thank you to our YouTube producer, Justin Lane, for his work on the video side of things. Thank you, Justin. I just realized that that's unfair to Tommy. Tommy Fleetwood's a better player than Patrick Cantlay, right? Or is it even? I don't know. We'll sort this out.
It's close.
We'll come back with the answer next week. Appreciate you all for tuning in. Enjoy the golf. Good luck to your bets. This has been the Heat Check, a FanDuel Research podcast.